to me the life I love. Let the lave go by me. Give the jolly heaven above, and the byway nigh me. Bed in the bush with stars to see. Bread I dip in the river. There's the life for a man like me. There's the life forever.
The gig that changed my life forever had this legendary opera singer as the title role, Jerry Hadley. Now, anybody who knows opera knows Jerry Hadley, knows that name. He is still considered America's greatest tenor of all time. And so I'm freaking out. I'm thinking, oh my God, I got this gig where I get to be in the same room with Jerry Hadley. Okay, keep your cool. Don't be a jerk. Just soak it in, learn as much as you can. Just watch him work. Jerry was amazing. Now, anyone who has ever met Jerry Hadley will tell you that they instantly became friends with him because that's how he was. After about a couple of weeks into rehearsal, Jerry, during one of the breaks, came up to me and he said, "We need to go out to dinner. You and me. Let's go out to dinner. I want to talk." And so, what do you say? Except, okay, great. And so we went out to dinner. He took me out, sat me down, and it was pretty incredible. He just started talking. He was talking about his career, about how he came up through the ranks and how he had these wonderful mentors that helped him along the way, because that's the way it used to be. These bigger named artists would spot young talent and they would support it and they would help boost it up and give them opportunities and nurture them.
I was fortunate when I was coming up in the ranks that I had a lot of great opportunities. I got to sing with practically every singer whom I admired as a child of the last century, and I found them all to be more than generous with their time and more than willing to share with me what they had learned over the course of their lives and their careers. My two most important mentors, and this is one of the gifts of grace that was bestowed upon me, were Joan Sutherland and Leonard Bernstein. And you know, that's not too shabby for a kid who grew up on a farm in Illinois.
He told me that he made a deal with Lenny that someday when Jerry was further on in his career and more established, that he would find somebody to mentor just like they did for him. And that was the deal. And so Jerry explained this to me, and he looked me dead in the eyes and he said, "And I think you're that guy. You are who I am meant to mentor, and I would like to mentor you in the truest sense of the word, teach you everything that I know." And he said, "I don't want any of your money. I just want your time." And I was speechless. I mean, I couldn't say anything but yes and thank you. Because what an opportunity to have somebody like that who's worked with so many great artists and has learned so much through his career, not to mention he was a phenomenal singer, was incredible. And in terms of technique, he said, "You know, I hear what's going on. I hear what you're doing. I think I can help you. I think I've got some answers for you, and I think I can make it a little bit clearer." And so the deal was, I give him my time. Whenever he was around, whenever he was home from a gig, if he wanted to work, then I had to drop everything and do it. An average typical day of working with Jerry was like this. I'd get to his place 9 or 10 in the morning, and we would start by vocalizing.
Instead of shoving it this way, allow yourself to feel yourself drinking it in. Freedom and the joy of life forever flown. Weary is is the path I walk alone. That's a totally different sensation. Yes.
When you, again, it's the weird
It's dull.
thing, but I responded to that because you said, instead of pushing it out, drink it in.
Okay, sing the whole thing that way.
It was a complete indoctrination, kind of like a brainwashing of understanding what technique really is. And the technique that Jerry taught me was the perspective of this natural physical gesture that your body makes to produce sound, and understanding it from that perspective, not dealing with it from a placement perspective where you put the sound up here, because the sound actually happens here. And it's understanding how you get your body to make that noise, to make that sound, and how you sustain that. And then understand, by doing that, this is how you experience up here.
You know what's interesting is that, yeah, you're right. I'm totally on the thin edge of my cords. What's interesting is
You're not
that
shoving it at us. You're not going, listen, listen, listen.
I am allowing myself, when I sing that way, I'm allowing myself to be able to sing more stylized, too. Stylistically, sorry.
That's right.
Because-
Whereas the other is all about technique.
Right. Because it's not that when I sang it the other way, it's not that I wasn't aware of the style in which I was singing. It was I was limited.
Your style was perfect. It was beautiful.
Yeah, but the reason why it was I don't know if it was more detectable or if it was easier to understand it stylistically with the was because
It's closer to speech, isn't it? Yeah.
Right.
When our work started, it was we would vocalize all morning like that and just do maybe one or two exercises over and over and over again just to get the physicality right. Then we'd break for lunch. Usually when we would break for lunch, Jerry would just talk. He would just be like free-forming and just stream of consciousness and talking about singing, talking about technique. He would talk a lot about other singers, and one of the big things that he used to have me do was he used to have me listen to a lot of the great tenors from previous generations. And he used to say to me, look, I'm going to teach you this technique, but these guys are really going to show you how it's done. He said, don't try to mimic the sound. Just understand the physicality, understand their technique behind it, how they're actually doing it.
We are one of the groups in the modern world which still literally pass things down by oral tradition. There was no pun intended there, but we are called upon often to do music which is not of our time and our place.
And then after lunch, we would then get right back up at the piano and start working again all afternoon. Sometimes it would vary. At first, it was we would apply the technique and usually work on like one aria or one art song just to say, okay, this is what you're working on this morning and this is how we apply it. And that was insanely intense and wonderful and magical and fantastic all rolled up into one. And so we did that until dinner. And I mean, that's like one song until dinner, like 4 or 5 hours. It was awesome. There were tears, there was sweating, there was yelling, there was laughter. It was like everything. And it was such a journey. It was so amazing.
You can hear the difference, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the difference pleases you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's just seamless. There's no, it's like a column of beautiful sound that doesn't ever manifest itself any other way than beautifully.
As part of my education and being the protege of Jerry Hadley, I had to learn everything there was to know about the Alamo. Now, Jerry was, ever since he was a kid, was a huge fan of anything to do with the Alamo, anything related to it. He collected, He built dioramas, he had costumes, he had Bowie knives and things like that. And part of what I needed to do in order to study with him was to understand why the Alamo was so important. Jerry was a member of the Alamo Society, and every year in August, the members of this group get together and they celebrate Davy Crockett's birthday. So one year, Jerry said, look, there's a meeting at for the Alamo Society, and it's in New Jersey. We're going. You're coming with me. And I'm like, Jerry, look, I appreciate the Alamo. I get it. I know that that's part of what I need to do, and I need to learn everything about it, but I don't want to go. You go, have fun, do your Alamo thing, and let me know how it is. And he said, no, you have to go. And I've got it all planned out. We're going to get dressed up because everybody gets dressed up. When you go to an Alamo Society meeting, we dress up. I've got your costume ready. You're going as frontiersman, Davy Crockett. I'm going as elder statesman, Davy Crockett. And so he had the costumes. I had no choice. So I had to go. So the day of, I go over to his place. We get into these crazy costumes, props and everything. And we drive down the New Jersey State Turnpike in our costumes. It was crazy. And it was embarrassing. And it was also hilarious. And we had a blast. So we get there, get to the house. Guess who are the only two people dressed up in costumes? Yes, us. Us too. When you work so closely with somebody on a one-on-one type of situation like that, you're bound to become really close. And because of our personalities, Jerry and I really became close friends. And it was really an amazing relationship. I mean, we shared so much, and I felt like I knew him so well, and he was such a great guy.
I was reminded of it, that when Bernstein died, many of us who had the great fortune of working with him closely were asked by his recording company, Deutsche Grammophon, to compose some words of memoriam, which they were going to print in a small memorial book. And try as I might, I couldn't. I'm usually pretty articulate and just wind me up and I talk. But I tried and tried and tried, and I couldn't come up with anything that even came close to what I wanted to say. And as is my wont, I keep a pad of paper and a pen or a pencil next to my bedstand in case lightning should strike and I should actually have an idea that's worth anything, so I can write it down if I wake up in the middle of the night. And I remember getting up to answer nature's call, and I remember kind of stumbling back to bed, and I vaguely remember writing something down, but I have no conscious memory. I woke up the next morning, and I do believe that Lenny himself entered my body in the middle of the night and said, "Listen, if you can't think of something to write about me, let me do it for you." And these were the words that appeared on the paper. They came through me, but they were not of me. And what was there was that Leonard Bernstein introduced me to a world without fear. When I stood on the podium and looked into his eyes, I could see that there were no limitations. There were only possibilities. And I also believed in my heart in those moments that neither were the gates of hell inassailable, nor the gates of heaven unattainable. Now, when I met Brian Cheney a couple of years ago, I was so struck not only by Brian's talent, but also by Brian's humanity. He has become, I would say, my best friend. He is not my biological son, but he is certainly my spiritual son. And I'm always proud when I'm in Brian's presence. Now, what I just wrote, or what I just shared with you about Leonard Bernstein, I know that Brian has in his soul in immense quantities. Now, you may not have heard much about Brian yet, but I'm convinced that in the next 10 to 15 years, he will be somebody that you'll be able to say about, well, I remember being here in May of 2006, and I remember hearing Brian Cheney when nobody knew who he was.
Experiences like that with Jerry, where he would come to see my gigs and be backstage, be a part of it. It was just so amazing. He was so giving that way. So my career starts taking off for me in a way where I'm singing lots of different roles now, having a lot more fun. I'm not nearly as frustrated. I'm definitely not confused anymore. I've got this clarity. Yeah, my voice wasn't as great as it could have been, but I was just starting out, and I was like early 30s at that point, just kind of figuring my stuff out. And I remember I was away on a gig. I was singing in a production of Naughty Marietta in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And everything was cooking along, feeling great with my voice. Everything's good. And nothing could have prepared me for what was about to happen.
Sali demere chaste pire, sali demere chaste pire.